Here we are asked to write the Lewis structure for Freon 12, also known as dichloro-difluoromethane, or CCl2F2, which is one of the chlorofluorocarbons responsible for the decomposition of ozone in the stratosphere. So to write the correct Lewis structure, we will first have to use the molecular formula to count the number of valence electrons in the molecule, and then use this to determine the skeletal structure for the molecule, and then distribute the valence electrons among all the atoms. And this will lead us to the correct Lewis structure. So we see here that the molecule has one carbon atom, and carbon, being a group 14 element, has 4 valence electrons, and we have 2 chlorine atoms, which is in group 17 of the periodic table, giving us 2 times 7 valence electrons, and we have 2 fluorine atoms, which is also in group 17, again giving us 2 times 7 valence electrons. Adding up all the valence electrons gives us 32 valence electrons in our molecule. Of all these atoms, we see that carbon is the least electronegative of the elements, and so carbon will be our central atom. Fluorine is the most electronegative of the elements, and so this will form the terminal atoms in the molecule. And then chlorine is also more electronegative than carbon, and these will also form terminal atoms in our molecule. The next step is to join the atoms in our molecule with chemical bonds, like so. And we should recall that in each chemical bond we have 2 electrons. And so we have in bonds 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons distributed. Next, we will add our lone pair electrons. And so again, we start with the terminal atoms. So we have 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32 electrons. And so here we have distributed all of our valence electrons. We should note here that fluorine, which is one of the elements that must obey the octet rule, has 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons. And this is true for both of the fluorine atoms. Carbon also must obey the octet rule, and we have 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons for carbon. And so this is the correct Lewis structure for dichloro-difluoromethane. Finally, you'll note that even though chlorine does not have to obey the octet rule, in this case it does indeed have an octet, 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons.